Hello, and welcome to the third and final um, presentation, or not even presentation, video in our social media marketing overview. Last time I talked about the role of a social media marketing person, the skills gap, um, and we talked a little bit about just kind of starting with what a social media marketing strategy is and how it compares to social media marketing. So here's our 7 steps. You're going to see in this course, there's a couple of step-by-step processes. Another thing is going to be social media campaigns, and then also, creating advertising. And most of the time, we start with identifying our target market. We then conduct an audit. Then we establish goals and objectives, and we work our way through. This video, we're really just going to look at the first three. I don't think there's there's not enough time, but also steps 4 through 7 are pretty straightforward, and a lot of those come in later videos and later modules in the course. So, identifying a target market, we're not going to go through customer persona or anything like that, but you need to understand who your brand is going for. Who is the customer? That first step really sets in motion everything that comes after it. Um, but I want to really look at step 2, and that's called the social media audit. At the dawn of AI here, and I do say we're at the dawn because this is the first couple of years where the masses can do this. We're looking at a time where we need to look and see, is there a positive or negative sentiment about your brand, and we need to manually go through and see how the brand is existing on social media. Now, if you're starting a new business, there's not going to be a social media audit. We're just going to start based on step 1, identifying your target market. But if your company exists, and I think a lot of people, if you're going to go into social media marketing, you might get a job for an existing business, there's going to be some sort of social media footprint. And the question is, no matter how big or small, how has the brand operated here before? What has worked? Because we want to be able to glean some insights from that into what we're going to do in the future. So, really, the key thing is you don't need to look at every single post, but you do want to understand what are the social networks where the brand's been active. What's the follower count looking like? How often has the brand been posting? And then how about those stats? And let's get into that. So there's a lot of different social media metrics. There's more than the ones here. And it's important for a brand to establish some KPIs, some key performance indicators. This will come back later. There's a whole section on analytics, but for today, I just want to give a quick overview and I want to level set on a couple of definitions. One, social media metrics, we have impressions. That's in the upper right. That is the total number of times an individual post is seen. That means if I saw it, if you and I both looked at a post 10 times, that's 20 impressions. But then underneath it, you might see bolded, a couple things down, is reach. That is the number of unique people who saw a post. If you and me both saw a post 10 times, that reach is 2. So it's a lot less. Impressions are always way higher than reach for any post. And impressions are relevant in advertising sometimes, but it's also relevant for companies that sell advertising. So an example would be like Crane's Detroit Business. I've worked with them in the past. I've bought advertising through them in previous iterations, and they like to promote their social media content. They're like, "Hey, if we'll write an article for you, it'll be sponsored content, and we'll post it 3 times on social media to our 100,000 followers, and we see an average of 10,000 impressions per post." Those numbers sound really good. If they were to tell me the reach and how many actual people saw that post, it's probably like 2,000 people. So impressions are great when you are trying to sell it. You're trying to sell the effectiveness of a post. Reach is really more important because that gives you a more realistic number. On the left side, because I'm kind of going backwards here, clicks are just anywhere on a post that people click through. That can include a clicking on an image to enlarge it. That can include clicking on a link that's in the text. It could even include clicking on a video that might not be autoplaying. That's a level of engagement that is much more involved because it requires somebody to physically take an action proactively on a post. Something that I didn't put here is comments. I think that's a pretty straightforward one. And shares, right? Those are very straightforward, but those are types of engagements. Engagements include these clicks, and they include shares and comments, and they also include likes. Likes or reactions, as you see now, because most social networks offer you to do more than a like. You can give a hug, or you can sympathy, or whatever, celebrate, all that stuff. So if you want to look at total engagements, that's a combination of all the different ways. That's the sum of the different ways that you can engage with a post. Engagement rate underneath, that is your total engagements divided by your total impressions. Usually an engagement rate is anywhere, the average across all industries is usually around 5%, sometimes lower, and it also can be platform specific. I've seen on Instagram, usually engagement rate's a little bit higher, 10 to 15%, whereas Twitter, X, LinkedIn, Facebook, way lower. We're looking at like 1 to 3%. I won't go through and define all of these, but they'll be relevant as we go through. Those are the ones to know for today. We're down to our last couple of slides, and this is a really key thing, and this is goals, objectives, and metrics. So with KPIs, this is the third step in the social media strategy development. We always start with a goal. And you'll notice the goal here, this is an example. The goal doesn't have a number with social media. We are just looking to do something. Something's got to change. In this case, we're looking to increase brand awareness for the company. Now, in order to determine if you are successful with the goal, you need to look at a set of objectives. Now, some people might look at these as goals. I know in my first job, my goals were to on social media, we were to do these things, right? They were objectives. But if you have an objective, that means that you have something that you're trying to hit, a number. So in this example, they're trying to grow Instagram followers by 150%. That's pretty crazy. And all of these generate 100% more traffic on the website, like all these different things. I personally would never set an objective that is tied to sales, because then that turns social media into a sales job. But whatever, this is just an example. Now, those objectives are informed by metrics, which again are numbers. These are not goals. Metrics are just straight data points. They are not. You're not trying to achieve something. Your metrics are just informing your objectives, which then come together to create to determine if you're successful in your goals. So metrics, though, those are determined over a period of time. So let's say this is on a yearly basis. Then what you would do is you would look at, okay, what's our number of new followers over the last 12 months? And you would then apply that same time frame to all of the metrics. Again, I would never put revenue from social media posts as a metric for a social media job, but this is not my graphic. You see that little line at the bottom, though. Hey, each goal must have quantifiable objectives and metrics. Because when it comes down to it, we are looking for numbers, we are looking for analytics, but then all together, they do need to tell a story. They need to be able to show something. And brand awareness is not something that can be defined in one number. I don't care what company you are, what industry you're in, what type of business you run. Brand awareness is not something that can just be seen on a dashboard with one number. It is the aggregation of many numbers. And in this case, it's the aggregation of objectives and metrics. All right. Last thing in step 3 here is we do have KPIs that we want to talk about. You'll notice here, to me, KPIs are the metrics, All right, we're measuring new followers, we're measuring likes, comments, and shares, and we're looking at how well posts or social media can drive people to the website. Right, we'll say that those are our three KPIs. KPIs, though, that's 3 to 5 metrics per platform. So you can choose. Goals, by the way, in general are across all platforms. But you can also do it individually. It depends on the company and how granular they want to get. But each platform needs its own set of KPIs, and that's because they do different things. If your company is on Instagram and your company is on Facebook, and your company is on LinkedIn, LinkedIn's going to be a lot better at driving traffic to a website. Instagram's not. Why? Well, I think we know why. Because Instagram does not allow links and posts. That is the kind of idea behind this, that different platforms are really, they're better for different things that you're trying to do. The last two slides here. One, I just want to go back to the idea that brands need to be authentic and they need to build trust on social media. They cannot just sell stuff. That's where storytelling comes in. Storytelling does that. It builds community, it builds trust. And this is where we've all seen the post. Or the example I like to use is not even on social media, on a website. You're looking for a recipe for I don't know, for anything. We'll say croissants, which is what I think this person's making in this image. If I want to find a recipe for a croissant, I Google it, I find it, I click through. Maybe I see it on Facebook. I click through to the link to the website. And usually what you get is this long narrative. Oh, I fell in love with croissants when I was 8 years old on a visit to Paris. And we never, usually with a recipe, like we don't want that. Just like just get me to the recipe. I'm trying to cook this. I've got this dough sitting out. I need to figure out what I'm going to do with it. But that's an example, is that people like to put a narrative around this content that they're sharing so that it connects with people and it's more memorable. People are never going to forget your social media, or people are never going to remember, I should say, your social media post that promises 20% off if you use this discount code, summer savings. But they're also never going to forget, or maybe it'll be a little bit more difficult to forget, an authentic story about how a coat from the North Face was instrumental in helping a pair of backpackers hike to the summit of Mount Kilimanjaro. It's those, that's a little extreme, but that's the type of story that brands need to be telling. And a lot of the most successful brands on social media, they do that. So last point here. Key takeaways just for all of these, right? Social media, it's an intentional thing. This is not something where brands are successful on accident. But also, you need to be specific with each platform. And that's why for each platform, I have different videos like this. But you also need an authentic engagement. That means not just liking people's comments. That means responding to comments. That means maybe commenting in addition to other people and sharing more context. That means it's a two-way communication now. It is not one way. And the data suggests it over time, especially in the last couple of years, is that brands who take the time to comment and respond to customers, especially publicly or even privately via DMs, those are the companies that are seeing more success on social media. But hey, when it comes to doing more and being on top of things, stay up to date on the trends, stay relevant. And also consistency and creativity. That's also necessary. Don't just post once and then never do it again. It's got to be an intentional, authentic, human first strategy. If you do that, your brand is going to be in a much better position to succeed. And we will dive into how to do that in the coming videos. So that concludes our first look at introduction to social media for businesses. For any questions, please feel free to reach out. I hope these videos weren't all too long. I know on average we're at about 15 minutes, so they're not super long, but they're not super short. So yeah, feel free to leave any feedback for me, and I will see you next time.